So, being somebody who has been recently struck by grief, and I'm in the phase of bereavement, I wanted to bring the attention to this concept of the double grief, double death. And that's where we have known somebody, have been in relationship with somebody in some form, and they have developed some form of mental, physical, or emotional change, which has been significant enough to feel as though we've lost them. One of my clients brought that to my attention in my clinic around the similarity of losing a parent to dementia or Alzheimer's, or losing a loved one to a real acute mental health diagnosis, such as schizophrenia. So, seeing bits of them that we know and having that conversation or being able to laugh and joke and maybe do tasks together like shopping and stuff like that. And then every so often being reminded, like, oh, that part has died. So either they have a very fuzzy memory, so they don't remember things recently, but they remember things from way back, or the other way around, or they start talking about things that make you feel uncomfortable because you feel like they're in a different realm, that they're talking about something that isn't there. Um, so they become distressed, and there's no need to be distressed in the physical realm. Then you have to kind of navigate that and live through that, but you can't name it as grief because that person is still walking around alive. And then the second death is when they physically die. So they die in the physical, there's a death, um, and there's that closure. So then what happens is the grief process is more complex than it would be if there was one death, because you've lost them already in some shape or form, but maybe you didn't see it necessarily, or you couldn't find the words to name it as a death, right? But people as we know them start to deteriorate when they do um, develop these mental health illnesses, whether it is Alzheimer's or dementia or schizophrenia. Um, and then when they physically die, it's complicated because the feelings are heavy with the physical grief that you're not going to see them again. But also, there's been a delayed grief from when you've lost them mentally, but you haven't managed to coin that, that is a form of grief because you see that person all the time. So be really aware of that, that if you've lost somebody and it feels complicated due to maybe some of the conditions that I've mentioned, or maybe other conditions that are similar, it doesn't mean that you are a bad person or a cold person, or you can't access your emotions, or there isn't a guidebook that says this is how you grieve, this is how you're meant to present yourself. It very much depends on the individual, and it depends on the relationship that you had with the deceased. So in that processing time of trying to process this double death or double grief, just have grace on self, that you may have a delayed grief, so you may be able to access your emotions and your grief in waves. You may be able to access it there and then. It may take a few months, it may take a few years, it may take decades. But grief is not linear at all, at all. Every person that we lose is going to hit differently. Um, so just have grace on yourself with your process. You don't have to justify your process to anybody. If people are saying you're crying too much, that's your process. If somebody's saying you're not crying enough, or why are you happy, or whatever, people always there's always gonna be noise. People got something to say. I think that's part of the circus of grief, right? You've got different generations dealing with it in different ways, and just because it works for them in this way, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you in your way. And also, you can reach out for help. Make sure you have a support community around you, whether it's friends, family, a therapist. If you need to start therapy, or if you have a therapist, you're in therapy, utilize that time. It's really important to have a soundboard, a reflective space, a space that is safe enough for you, your process, but also the spirit, the spirit of the person who's left. Find spaces to honor that person and to honor yourself in relationship to that person, because not all grieving processes means that there are positive thoughts around the person that left. There might be some other thoughts and feelings in contrast to that. It's complex. It's very complex. If this resonates with you and you are going through a grief process, feel free to get in touch. And if I have capacity, I will meet with you. If I don't have capacity, I have many connections that I can signpost you to. But whatever you do, be well.